Photos were from Wichita Mountains National Wildlife Refuge, and this is the final one that I'll be posting from our trip. And this is what I mean when I say there are grand vistas that you get to see in this place that you just don't see elsewhere in Oklahoma, and it's so cool to experience. This is the top of Mount Scott. You can actually drive up this mountain. There are people who walk it, people who bike it. There's also a paved road. You can just drive right on up, and that's what we do. We went up there 4 times during our stay, or our short stay, just because it's so cool to look around and climb around in these rocks. There's no guardrails. You can just fall right off the edge if you're not careful, but we're pretty careful, and our kids just love it to climb on these rocks and look around. And so one night I noticed something, and I told my wife, I said, when the sun was setting, it made all these contours in the landscape pop out. And I never noticed that before. This is our 3rd trip to Wichita Mountains. I had never noticed this phenomenon. So I asked her, I said, do you mind if we come back the next night and you can watch the kids? Would you mind watching the kids while I try to take a photo of this? She said, yeah, that's fine. So this is the night before we left, and I forget the time. It was probably like 8 o'clock. So the sun is setting, and it's in early June, and the air was relatively clear. Obviously, you can see some clouds here, but what I don't see in any of my other photos of this spot that I've taken over the years are the shadows, the highlights and shadows in the distance. So you can see the right-hand side of everything is lit up and the left-hand side is dark, and it just brings out every little hill and lump and curve in the whole landscape, and it just makes it come alive with a texture that you don't see during broad daylight, like at noon, because the sun is straight overhead. So you don't get all those that rich sense of contour and texture. I keep using that word texture, but it's just not there when the sun is overhead, and it's only there for a little bit in the morning and in the evening, right, as the sun is coming up and going down. And then you can see it in the rocks in the foreground too. They're brightly lit on the left-hand side, and those trees are dark on the right because the sun is on the other side. So this was such a cool opportunity to pay attention to lighting. I also used my tripod for this, not because I necessarily needed it, but this is a 1/60th of a second exposure. I wanted to shoot at small aperture. This is f8 to get the photo nice and sharp all the way through. And also ISO 200, which is as low as that X100F goes, and that meant a longer shutter speed of 1/60th, and a slower shutter speed. And I couldn't really do that handheld. I really wanted to use a tripod, so I busted out the tripod for this, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad I brought that with. This, boy, I tell you, this is really a cool place to visit. I know I said this last week, and I'm saying it again. If you ever get the chance to visit the Wichita Mountains, I recommend it. It's not going to like change your life or anything, but if you live in Oklahoma, it's worth the drive. You just don't get to see stuff like this too often.